Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. Sometimes the most unexpected moments can change everything. What started as a desperate plea for help became something Elena never saw coming, a choice that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and the human heart. Elena Martinez stared at the eviction notice in her trembling hands, the words blurring through her tears. 30 days. That's all she had left in the small apartment she'd called home for 3 years. The afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows, casting long shadows across the sparse furniture that would soon be sitting on the curb if she couldn't find a miracle. Her husband David had been gone for 6 months now, chasing his dreams in another city, leaving behind promises that grew thinner with each passing week. The construction job he'd found was supposed to be temporary, just enough to get them back on their feet. Instead, his calls became less frequent, his excuses more elaborate, and his financial support non-existent. Elena pressed her back against the kitchen counter, feeling the weight of her isolation. At 28, she had imagined her life would be different by now, stable, secure, filled with the kind of love that weathered storms together. Instead, she found herself drowning in bills, working double shifts at the diner, and facing homelessness with a pride that was becoming harder to maintain each day. The sound of her phone, buzzing, broke through her spiral of despair. Another text. From David, brief and dismissive. Still working on things here. Be patient. No mention of when he'd return. No acknowledgement of the crisis she faced alone. That evening, as Elena sat in her dim living room with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands, she thought about the one person who might understand David's uncle, Marcus Chen. David had always spoken of him with a mixture of respect and admiration. Marcus was successful, owning a small but thriving architectural firm downtown. More importantly, he was kind, the type of man who remembered birthdays and asked thoughtful questions during family gatherings. The decision to reach out felt like stepping off a cliff. Elena had never been the type to ask for help, especially not from her husband's family. But desperation has a way of reshaping even the most stubborn pride. She found Marcus's number in her contacts, her finger hovering over the call button for what felt like an eternity. What would she say? How do you explain that your husband has essentially abandoned you without sounding like you're making excuses? The phone rang 3 times before his familiar voice answered. Elena, this is a pleasant surprise. How are you? The warmth in his tone nearly broke her resolve. Marcus, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Never too busy for family. Is everything all right? You sound upset. The concern in his voice was her undoing. Before she could stop herself, the words tumbled out: the eviction notice, David's absence, the mounting bills, the sleepless nights. Spent wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. Marcus listened without interruption, his silence somehow more comforting than any words could have been. When she finished, her voice hoarse from trying not to cry, he was quiet for a long moment. Elena, he said finally, I want you to know that what David is doing ... it's not right. You shouldn't have to face this alone. I don't know what to do anymore, she whispered. I've tried everything. I've worked extra shifts. I've sold what little jewelry I had. I've even looked into food banks. But the rent, it's just too much. Listen to me, Marcus said, his voice firm but gentle. You're not going to lose your home. I'll help you with the rent, and we'll figure out a plan from there. But more than that, I think you need someone to talk to. Someone who understands what you're going through. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. And it's not charity, Elena. It's family taking care of family. The way it should be. The next evening, Marcus arrived at her apartment with Chinese takeout and a quiet determination to help her sort through her finances. Elena had spent the day cleaning frantically, embarrassed by the state of her small space. But Marcus seemed to notice only her efforts, not her limitations. "You've made this place beautiful," he said, setting the food on her small dining table. "I remember when David first brought you to family dinner. You had this way of making everyone feel welcome, like you'd been part of the family forever." As they ate, Elena found herself really looking at Marcus for the first time. He was 42, with graying temples that gave him a distinguished air, and eyes that held a depth she'd never noticed before. There was something steady about him, something that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in months. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said, pushing her lo mein around her plate. "Do you think I'm wrong to be angry with David? Sometimes I feel like I should be more understanding, more supportive of his dreams." Marcus set down his chopsticks and leaned back in his chair. "Elena, supporting someone's dreams doesn't mean sacrificing your own security and well-being. Partnership means facing challenges together, not leaving one person to handle everything alone. But marriage is supposed to be for better or worse, right?" "Yes, but worse doesn't mean abandonment. It means sticking together when things get difficult, not running away to pursue opportunities while leaving your partner to handle the consequences." The conversation continued late into the evening, touching on dreams deferred, responsibilities shared, and the difference between temporary struggles and fundamental incompatibilities. Marcus had a way of listening that made Elena feel heard, truly heard, for the first time in months. Over the following weeks, Marcus became a regular presence in Elena's life. He helped her negotiate with her landlord, reviewed her budget, and even connected her with a part-time bookkeeping job at a friend's business. More than the practical help, though, was the emotional support he provided. Their conversations grew deeper, more personal. Marcus shared stories of his own marriage, which had ended 5 years earlier when his wife decided she wanted different things from life. Elena found herself opening up about her childhood, her dreams of becoming a teacher, and the gradual erosion of hope that had characterized her marriage to David. "I used to think love was enough," Elena said one evening as they walked through the park near her apartment, "that if you loved someone enough, you could make anything work." "Love is necessary," Marcus replied, his hands in his pockets as they strolled past couples on benches and families with children. "But it's not sufficient. You need respect, communication, shared values, and commitment to making things work together. Without those, even the deepest love can't survive." Elena glanced at him, struck by the wisdom in his words. "Is that what happened with your marriage?" "Partly. We loved each other, but we wanted completely different lives." She wanted to travel the world, live spontaneously, never be tied down. "I wanted to build something stable, create a home, maybe have children. Neither of us was wrong, but we were wrong for each other." "Do you regret it? The divorce?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering. "I regret the pain we caused each other. I trying to force something that wasn't meant to be. But I don't regret ending something that was making us both miserable." They had stopped walking, standing beneath a street lamp that cast a warm glow over the evening scene. Elena felt something shift in the air between them, a recognition of feelings that had been growing quietly for weeks. "Marcus," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." He turned to face her fully, and she saw in his eyes that he already knew what she was going to say. The attraction had been mutual, building slowly through shared meals, long conversations, and the countless small kindnesses he'd shown her. "I know this is complicated," Elena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I'm married, And you're David's uncle, and this situation is impossible. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just gratitude. Marcus reached out, his fingers barely touching her hand. Elena, I've been fighting these feelings for weeks. You're intelligent, beautiful, stronger than you realize, and you deserve so much more than what you've been given. But you're right, this situation is complicated. I know, she said, tears threatening to spill over. I know it's wrong to feel this way. I know I should be fighting for my marriage, waiting for David to come home, being the dutiful wife. But I can't help wondering what my life would be like with someone who actually wants to be here, who wants to build something together instead of running away when things get difficult. Marcus stepped closer, his hand moving to gently touch her face. You're not wrong to want those things. You're not wrong to want a partner who shows up, who fights for you, who makes you feel valued and loved. The kiss, when it came, was soft and tentative, filled with months of suppressed longing and the bittersweet knowledge that it was both inevitable and impossible. When they broke apart, both were crying. What do we do now? Elena asked, her forehead resting against his. I don't know, Marcus admitted. But I know I can't watch you suffer alone anymore. And I know that pretending these feelings don't exist isn't going to make them go away. The next few days were a blur of confusion and guilt. Elena found herself caught between 3 different versions of her life. The one she was living, the one she'd been trying to save, and the one she was beginning to imagine. David's calls became more sporadic, his promises more vague, his timeline for return indefinitely postponed. Meanwhile, Marcus struggled with his own conscience. He was a man of integrity, someone who had always believed in doing the right thing. But what was the right thing when the right thing seemed to be allowing Elena to continue suffering in a marriage that was slowly destroying her? The decision point came 2 weeks later, when David called to announce that he'd been offered a permanent position in his new city. It's a great opportunity, Elena. I think you should come out here. We can make a fresh start. Elena stood in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, looking around the apartment that Marcus had helped her save. David, I haven't heard from you in a week. I had no idea you were even considering staying there permanently. I know, I should have called more. But this job, Elena, it's everything I've been working toward. The pay is good, the benefits are great, and there's real potential for advancement. And what about me? What about my job here, my life here? You can find another job. It's not like you're a CEO or something. And what life? You're barely scraping by in that apartment. The dismissiveness in his voice, the complete lack of understanding of what she'd been through, crystallized everything Elena had been feeling. David, do you even know that I almost lost the apartment? That I've been working double shifts just to pay for groceries? That I've been so worried about money that I've barely slept in months? I sent you money when I could. You sent me $200 3 months ago. The rent alone is $800. There was silence on the other end of the line. When David spoke again, his voice was defensive. Look, I'm trying to build something here. I'm trying to create a better future for us. Can't you be supportive? I have been supportive. I've been supporting both of us while you've been gone. But support goes both ways, David. It means caring about what happens to your partner. Checking in. Making sure they're okay. So what are you saying? That I should give up this opportunity? Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. I'm saying that I can't live like this anymore. I can't be married to someone who sees me as an afterthought, who only calls when it's convenient, who expects me to drop everything and follow along without any consideration for what I want or need. Elena, you're being dramatic. All couples go through rough patches. This isn't a rough patch, David. This is who we are. This is who you are. And I can't pretend anymore that it's going to change. That evening, Elena called Marcus and asked him to come over. When he arrived, she was sitting on her couch, looking calmer than he'd seen her in weeks. "I talked to David today," she said without preamble. "He wants me to move across the country to be with him. He's been offered a permanent job there." Marcus sat down beside her, careful to maintain some distance. "And what do you want?" "I want to be with someone who wants to be with me. Someone who would never leave me to face eviction alone. Someone who asks how my day was and actually listens to the answer." She turned to look at him. "I want to be with someone who makes me feel like I matter." "Elena, I know it's complicated. I know there will be consequences. David's family will probably hate me. People will judge us. But I can't live a lie anymore. I can't pretend to be happy in a marriage that makes me feel invisible." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. I don't want you to make a decision you'll regret. The only thing I regret is waiting this long to admit the truth. I love you, Marcus. I love your kindness, your integrity, the way you make me laugh, the way you make me feel like I'm worth something. And I know you love me too." "I do," he said simply. "I love you more than I ever thought possible. But I need you to be certain. I need you to be sure that this is what you want, not just what you're running toward to escape something else." Elena took his hands in hers. "I'm not running away from David. I'm running toward you. Toward a life where I'm valued, where I'm part of a partnership, where I'm not just an afterthought or a convenience." The kiss they shared this time was different, deeper, more certain, filled with the promise of a future they were choosing, together despite the obstacles they would face. Over the next month, Elena began the process of ending her marriage. It was painful, messy, and complicated by family loyalties and social expectations. David was angry, hurt, and completely blindsided by her decision. Some family members took sides, others tried to mediate, and a few quietly admitted they weren't entirely surprised. Marcus faced his own challenges. The age difference between him and Elena raised eyebrows, and his relationship with David's family became strained. His business partner questioned his judgment, and he lost a few clients who disapproved of the situation. But through it all, Elena and Marcus supported each other. They faced the judgment and criticism together, weathered the family drama together, and built something beautiful together. 6 months later, Elena moved into Marcus's house, a beautiful craftsman-style home with a garden she immediately began planning to expand. She enrolled in classes to finish her teaching degree, supported by a partner who believed in her dreams. Marcus found his own life enriched by Elena's presence, her laughter filling spaces that had been empty for too long. They married 2 years later, in a small ceremony attended by the friends and family members who had come to understand that love doesn't always follow conventional paths. Elena's former mother-in-law, surprisingly, was among the attendees, telling Elena privately that she was proud of her for having the courage to choose happiness. David eventually came to terms with the divorce, though his relationship with Marcus remained strained. He found happiness with someone new, someone who shared his restless energy and desire for adventure. In the end, everyone found their way to where they were meant to be. Elena often reflected on that desperate phone call she'd made, asking her husband's uncle for help. She had been asking for money, for practical assistance, for a way to keep her head above water. What she received was so much more a reminder of her own worth, a glimpse of what love could be when it was freely given and gratefully received, and the courage to choose the life she truly wanted. Sometimes the most unexpected moments can change everything. Sometimes asking for help leads to finding love. And sometimes the person who saves you is the one you never saw coming, but who sees you, truly sees you for exactly who you are. As Elena stood in her garden one evening, watching Marcus work on his latest architectural project through the window, she smiled at the beautiful complexity of life. She had learned that love isn't just about finding someone you can live with. It's about finding someone you can't imagine living without. Someone who makes you feel like the best version of yourself. Someone who chooses you every day, in all the ways that matter. The story of Elena and Marcus became a quiet testament to the idea that sometimes the most profound changes come from the most desperate moments, and that asking for help can lead to finding everything you never knew you were looking for.